many people.
Oh, yeah, nice try. Okay, thank you very much, Maria. I'm going to call to order the Finance Committee meeting on Thursday, July 25th at 4 o'clock. May I have an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Joe.
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Rob.
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open it up for public comment for anything that is not on our agenda. Seeing no electric hands waving at me, I will close it for public comments. Thank you. Okay, so the three articles that we have today are the articles that the sewer commissioners discussed last night, Articles 13, 14, 15. There was a negative recommendation for all three articles, and the vote was 4-1, with Dawn voting nay, and the other board members voting aye. So I'm going to put my hand up and say that with Libby being out, she normally invites the department heads when we have these topical issues. And it didn't occur to me until 2:30 today that we needed David Gray, because Libby always takes care of that. So unfortunately, we do not have David Gray, though I did watch the meeting twice of that portion and do have David's comments as to why the committee ultimately ended up with a negative recommendation. I mean, to summarize, I'm pretending to be David Gray for 2 seconds here. To summarize, frankly, and Stephen, you can jump in as a member of the public because you're recused from the other parts of this discussion. They basically said they didn't have enough information, and they really weren't in a position to do anything but accept David's negative recommendation. And it was acknowledged that the work that needed to be done hadn't been done prior to it getting to the select board, but because of the timeline of the special town meeting and us having to finalize our motion today, they decided to go with negative recommendation, with the caveat that when Stephen is able to meet with David Gray, and if they come up to a different set
of... Madam Chair, David's coming on right now, actually.
Oh, perfect. I can stop being David Gray. Thank you. Yay.
Sorry, I'm late.
David, don't worry. You got very short notice on this, and I was trying to I channeled Brooke the other day. I was channeling my inner David Gray just now. So I basically summarized that there wasn't enough information to be able to make a different recommendation other than a negative recommendation. But having said that, you and Stephen would meet, and if the circumstances were to change and a different recommendation should be made, that you would stand up at town meeting, Stephen would stand up, the select board would stand up and say, at the time we made a negative recommendation, however, we're changing it to, a positive recommendation on the floor of town meeting. So because the information that you had to hand wasn't enough for you to make a positive recommendation on this article. Yes, that's where. Okay. So now I'm going to stop talking and let it turn it over to you.
Stephen and I actually met this morning for a period, and we're able to discuss a lot. And I was able to give him some more information, and he was able to give me some information. So I'm going to still work on the checklist that was completed once, and then with some new information that I now have, and some in our discussion with Stephen this morning, I think we're on a good path, and it's just going to be a little bit more work to get where we need to be.
Okay, thank you. Stephen, as the sponsor, do you want to add anything to the discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I turned off my camera so it's clear to everybody that I am a member of the public and not a member of the exalted Committee on Finance. So I just want to say thank you to David for his time this morning, and for offering some insight which I didn't have before the sewer commissioner meeting last night. and I understand that David has some more work to do, and he's in touch with Dan Malloy, who's the engineer for the project. And I do think that there's a path forward that will meet, will pass muster for what the town's criteria is for adding the property to the sewer district under the current zoning. And that'll be up to David to determine whether he and his department can get to comfort around that. But it was a productive conversation this morning, and I just want to say again, thank you to David for making himself available.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm going to ask if there's any other members of the public that would. Right now, in front of us is the sewer commissioner's recommendation of negative recommendation for all three articles, 13, 14, and 15. Does anyone from the public want to speak? Art, you came off, you're raising your hand, so go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief, and I believe it would be appropriate for the Finance Committee to support the negative recommendation of the Board of Sewer Commissioners / Select Board. I do not see how there is a way that you get to the 9 points on the checklist, even, reviewing this. I've seen Mr. Maury's recent letter. Again, I disagree when you look at it that you could take and say that because a portion of the property that you're adding to the district could possibly be under the 40,000 square feet, that would meet that criteria for that point. The other thing on the list that was done under septic system criteria, it was marked off yes for existing and proposed septic system within 100 feet of a resource area. I believe that's incorrect. I don't think there's any resource areas within 100. I presume that means wetland resource areas that are within 100 feet of this property. I know the area very well, and routinely do wetland permitting and delineations, and I'm not aware of a resource area there. So that actually takes yet another point away. Mr. McNabb made an excellent point at the meeting last night, which is that also, the checklist is a guideline. And what I would urge the Finance Committee to consider is that this area is actually perfectly suited for septic systems. You have good soils, you have good distance to groundwater. I've designed thousands of septic systems on Nantucket, and what I can tell you is this is where you can have septic systems without that environmental impact in the areas such as the needs areas where you're worried about nitrogen loading to the harbors, because just the sole point of it being within the public wellhead recharge district, I do not believe automatically means that it needs to be sewered. And that has been, I think, the policy of the sewer master plan as well. Under that basis, the wellhead protection district goes out to Pulpus. It's a very large area that was in my letter. Does that mean that every property in that area now would be eligible to be sewered? I think that what we have to remember from a Finance Committee perspective is the impact of the cost to the citizens of the town of Nantucket when you have to upgrade not just the infrastructure that is receiving these flows immediately, but also of the wastewater treatment plant. And that's where we have, I think, to be very careful about that we also preserve that available capacity for the areas of the greatest environmental need. And that's that's not what this is. This is, solely to accommodate additional density, and the properties are perfectly suited for on-site, septic systems. And so to avoid further impact to taxpayers, sewer ratepayers, I believe it would be only appropriate for the Finance Committee of the town of Nantucket not to recommend these articles. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Art. Peter, question?
Question for Art. Art, when you say it's perfectly suited for septic, are you talking about for a single house, or are you talking about the plan that Stephen had, which may be 4 or 5 houses on the plot?
Through you, Madam Chair, it would be perfectly suited for under the current regulations, which with an IA septic system, you could possibly have 1 bedroom per 6,667 square feet. So no, you're not going to get his 20 houses and 80 bedrooms on a septic system on this property, but you certainly could do residential development. And you could choose to have, if you wanted, some affordable component utilizing, you know, septic systems and or regular residential development. But, you know, there's no reason not to have a septic system on the property under the, you know, the current regulations. There's no environmental reason that it would need to take up the available capacity in the sewer system that might require additional upgrades to sewer infrastructure, waste treatment plant that ends up being borne by all of the ratepayers on the sewer system, much like there's the capacity utilization fee that's been enacted now to pay for the last upgrade. So that's why.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments before Stephen, go ahead.
Thank you. I also would encourage the committee to follow the recommendation of the select board and support it. And I'm not asking you to make any change. And I certainly don't have all of Art's expertise in the area, and certainly not the expertise that David has. So I look forward to seeing what comes out of their review. I would note for the committee that at the planning commission meeting, this was discussed, and Seth, I hope I don't get his last name wrong, Engelborg, who's the representative from the Conservation Commission, made some, I thought, compelling points about why this property and the one next door should be added to the sewer district for environmental concerns. So, you know, I understand that Mr. Gasparo thinks that this is all self-serving. I don't believe that to be the case. I think there are real environmental benefits, not the least of which is if this property is sewered, the rest of Woodland Drive, which has been in the sewer district for a decade, and not a single property has connected to town sewer. All of those can be connected, which has a significant net benefit. Thank you,
Stephen. Thank you. Okay. The sewer commission, aka the select board, has made a negative recommendation on all three articles. Is the committee ready to move forward with a motion? Erica, go ahead.
Thanks, Denise. I just wanted to know one thing about, it being a benefit to have all of Woodland Drive potentially sewered. One thing that we in the select board office have been encountering is when private developers develop certain property and bring sewer in. Once there is sewer there, all property owners are required to abandon their septic and join. And that is a huge financial burden to a lot of property owners that don't have the money. That's a very year-round residential neighborhood. You've got retired people there. And I just want to put that out there that, you know, it may be beneficial in some ways to the environment, but it may not be beneficial financially to the people that are living there and have septic systems that are in working order.
Thank you, Erica. Stephen, I'll let you say something else. However, I think this discussion is probably best placed at special town meeting at this point, because as you rightfully recommended, we will follow most likely this committee will follow the sewer commission's recommendation. But go ahead, Stephen.
I understand your point there. But I think it's worth correcting. The expansion of the sewer district is not the reason that the rest of Woodland Drive would have to connect to sewer. In fact, they're already compelled to do so. Every property that's in the sewer district is compelled to connect to sewer.
That's
okay. Art?
That's not correct. I'll stop there, but that's not correct.
David, know.
They have to be adjacent to an active and approved sewer line, which many of the properties currently aren't. They are abutting an area that does have a sewer line, but there's no active sewer line that directly abuts these properties. So although they are in the district, they are not required currently under Article 69 of the Board of Health.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Any last comments from the public? Because otherwise I'll close the public comments or ask for a motion to close the public comment.
So moved.
May I have a second? Thank you. Roll call. Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeremy? Chris?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Jill and her emotional support dog?
Otherwise, it's barking.
That's where we've gotten to at FinCom now. I have 3 here behind me, but they're barking. So the headsets. Okay, good. All right. And Denise, aye. All right. Public comments closed on this. And is there a motion? And the motion would be to support the Sewer Commission's recommendation of a negative recommendation for these 3 articles, 13, 14, and 15, and to change this. Yeah, and to change it at town meeting, it would require a 2/3 plus 1 vote to change it to a positive recommendation. So just so you're aware of that, that's what the Sewer Commission, aka Select Board, voted last night. So I made the
moved.
Thank
Second.
you, Peter. Thank you, Jill. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Jeremy? You're muted, Jeremy, but that's okay. Jill?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Okay. David, thank you. And again, apologies for the very short notice. Yeah, really sorry. I hate to do that to people, and I did that to you. And
Thank you,
I owe you.
Denise.
I owe you one, David.
Appreciate it. And
a big
at
one.
some point in time, and we ever have a in-person meeting, I do not know all the members now on FinCom. There's some new members that I have not personally met yet. So at some point, hopefully, I get to meet everybody.
I hear a field trip, a FinCom field trip, except then we'd have to have an open meeting posting. So we'll go in 3 at a time.
We can have individual tours of the treatment plant if you want. So.
Okay, you'll see me soon then, David. Thank you.
All right. Thank
Lunch
you, everybody.
included.
Well, there's the sales pitch, Peter. Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay. Thank you, David. We'll set you free here. The next topic is discussion and potential recommendations of warrant articles for special town meeting 2024. I believe, Jill, you'd like to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to reconsider our vote on Article 1.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call. So Stephen and Chris, you're recused for this. Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Okay. All right. So, Jill, do you want to lead off, or would you like?
Sure.
Now we have. Oh, sorry, Jill. Sorry. We do have Dave Iverson joining us to provide more color commentary in respect of Article 1. So I'll let Jill start, and then Dave, I'm going to go over to you.
Yeah, I just I felt like we had a pretty close vote the other day, and I know that people talked a lot about the confusion of the article, but actually, so I felt like maybe we should discuss it again. I actually don't think it's that confusing. The legalese is, of course, confusing how it's written, but and maybe it would have been better had we just had some simpler bullet points, but I just feel like we've really come so close. This debate has been going on a long time, and the people who've worked on it, including Peter in the short-term rental work group last year, have devoted a ton of time. There's a ton of information here, and this is about the simplest form we could have where I think we have a chance to pass something. I realize it's in zoning, but it's important that we get something in zoning so that people do have the permission to rent with some restrictions. And we need to get past this particular debate. I really don't want to see a judge weigh in on this in the future. And this should be helpful. That doesn't mean there won't be lawsuits, but this should be helpful if we, as a group, stand united with the planning board and the select board who've endorsed this article. And so I just want to encourage all of you to give it a little more thought, and I'm happy to talk more about it if we need to. But or people have questions about it, Dave's here, and Denise knows everything too. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jill. Joe, I'll go to you, then Peter, and then to Dave, in case those are questions that Dave can answer.
At our last meeting, I thought that it's not perfect, but we're not going to get perfect. And to me, this is a pretty good start towards trying to find a way to put some structure around the short-term rentals. Mm-hmm. And so I'm in favor of doing it. And also, I think it's really important not to leave our fate in the hands of a judge. That's something that I just don't think is a good idea.
Thank you, Joe. Peter?
As I said yesterday, I think it's got too many words and it's too confusing and it's not going to pass. However, I think it's important for the three committees to stand together and to move forward on something. And I think I thought about it yesterday and today, and I am going to change my vote because I do think we need to do something. And even if it doesn't pass, it shows much more unity than we've had before on anything else that we voted on. So that's how I feel about it.
Thank you, Peter. Dave, do you want to briefly say something?
Yes, just really quickly. And thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the rest of the board for willing to discuss this again. And it dawned on me what I left out, helping the board understand it and helping the community understand, is that currently we have left this up to a judge. The judge came back and said that short-term rentals as a principal use is not allowed in our zoning district, period. He did say it could be an accessory use, traditional customary accessory use, and please, John, jump in if I'm wrong. So the context here is we're in a situation now where short-term rentals aren't necessarily legal. They're clearly illegal in many forms. And the ZBA decision, the pending ZBA decision, is not going to resolve that for us, right? Their decision is going to be based on 2 properties only and the specific facts that surround those 2 properties. So unless you fit into that small shoebox that both the Delaney Road and the Grape property is in, then it is not an allowed use through our zoning. So I think the best way for me to say this, and maybe it's, I'll probably catch heat for it, is that there's a small part of our community that is holding our zoning bylaws hostage. And the ransom for that hostage is regulation. So if we want to move forward with legally allowed rentals as a primary use in all zoning districts, we need to fix our zoning. To fix our zoning, we need to get a certain percentage of us as a community to accept that zoning change. And we have failed to do that so far because we haven't gotten the regulations right. So I think this is an opportunity. As Joe said, it's not perfect, but it's really important that we try to get some zoning bylaw change that allows rentals on the books. So
thank you.
Yeah, and if anyone has questions about any of the Warren article, I'm happy to answer them. But that's kind of my spiel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Rob?
Yeah, I think that's really well said, Dave. Thank you for summarizing that way. Don't we have the same situation with year-round rentals?
That's a Giorgio question, but I think that we do, but without somebody pushing us to court or challenging it, it just kind of simmers there.
John, do you want to answer Rob's question, please?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Rob, are you asking whether the judge's reasoning would apply to long-term rentals as well? Is that what you're asking?
No, through you, Madam Chair, I'm just asking whether year-round rentals are explicitly permitted by our zoning code.
Year-round rentals are considered a residential use. I don't think there's any real debate about that. I think that the judge in this case was looking specifically at short-term rentals. And making a distinction between short-term and long-term rentals, and made a determination that a short-term rental is not an allowed primary use. But there was no discussion in that decision, nor would I think it would be tenable to make that same argument with respect to long-term rentals. That is a residential use. So wherever residential uses are allowed, you can have a long-term lease, a long-term rental. I don't think that's in dispute.
Thank you, John. Other questions or comments from the committee? Okay. Any questions or any comments from the public? Okay, seeing no hands raised, I am going to ask for a motion, and the motion, so the motion before was the Finance Committee supports the Planning Board motion, and it did not receive a positive recommendation. So it would be the same motion again with just the same, and we would just take a vote again. So
moved.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you. Okay, roll call. Jeremy?
No.
Okay, right. Jill?
Aye.
Thank you. Peter?
Aye.
Okay. Joe?
Aye.
Who am I missing? Rob?
I'm going to stick with no.
Okay, and Denise is aye. So that's 4-2. It passes. The motion is the Finance Committee supports the Planning Board motion for Article 1. Okay. All right.
Board members, thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Committee date of our next meeting. Actually, it says. Thank you, Dave, for being here. It says Thursday, September 12th. It's actually the 28th. We have the joint planning board. Hold on a second.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
29th. Thank you, Maria. I like it when you keep me straight. It's at what time? 5 o'clock? What time is that meeting, Maria, while I have you? 4 p.m. And it's Zoom. It's Zoom, right?
It's a webinar, yes.
Yes.
So
okay.
the link will come from Nantucket TV.
Okay.
We're talking July 29th, correct?
July 29th, yes.
Yeah.
Did I say September?
No, you didn't say anything. You said the 29th.
Yeah, July 29th. This is the joint planning board, select board, finance committee meeting that we have after all the motions are completed. So there can be questions or answers in respect of why either the planning board or finance committee made the motions they made. Okay. Typically that meeting has been relatively brief in the past. So that's on Monday, 4 p.m. online. And then committee reports. Jill, I believe Capcom is already off to a running start.
Capcom is kicked off today, but we haven't received any requests. We're just going over a lot of administrative details, and we still we're waiting on select board and NPEDC to appoint their members too. So we're a little short on members, but hopefully that gets wrapped up in the next few weeks, and then we'll start hearing requests.
Okay, thank you. Peter, anything from Our Island Home?
No, we haven't met since our last call. We have a meeting next week, next week. And nothing new on solid waste either.
Okay, thank you. Jill, anything else on Town Council Study Committee?
Yeah, it's really, I love this. I love talking about changing the charter. It's so interesting to me. But yesterday we talked about how many members would be on a town council and what their terms would be. And people mostly thought that having 9 members and 3-year terms. And so you vote for 3 people every year. That kind of was the consensus. We're not voting on those things right now, but that was kind of, we talked about doing 7 and 11, and it's been a lot of good discussion. So that was kind of the thrust of yesterday's meeting was the legislative section.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
I think Peter was before me.
Okay, Peter?
I just wanted to ask, Jill, they're still thinking about paid, these are going to be paid positions?
That came up yesterday too. Yes, they would. Now, interestingly, except for Boston, most communities, they don't pay as much as I think some of us thought they did. The average salary was like $10,000 to $12,000. So we are going to keep talking about that. We didn't talk about a specific number, but they were just giving us that comparison to the other communities. I think everyone sort of looked around and felt like, hey, we'd be willing to pay more. We know it takes so much more time. I personally wanted to convey, and I'd love y'all's thoughts if you wanted at some point, but that some of the boards and commissions might end up being more made up of town council members, right? Instead of lots of volunteers or appointment jobs. Maybe, I don't know how all those boards and commissions would work yet. But that would require even more time if they're sitting on every single board and commission, right? So it seems like they should be paid accordingly, depending on how many hours we kind of come up with what they're putting
Jill?
into it. And Tom Dixon actually, let me just finish. Tom Dixon actually gave a very impassioned plea about how, it's practically a full-time job to be a select board member and how hard it is. And not just going to all the meetings, but all the incoming and responding to constituents. And so I think everybody really appreciated his perspective.
Thank you, Jill. Chris was next, Jeremy, then you.
Jill, is there discussion about how those seats would be apportioned, or is it all being discussed as being at large, or would there be sort of geographic
We talked about both
representation?
Yeah, we talked about both. I think everybody felt like at large was the best. They actually had a really interesting map, and you could see where all the select board members and all the people who had run for select board, where they lived on island. And it was just that corridor from town all the way through Mid-Island. There was nobody like on the beat, not even one person like from Madaket or Sconset. They didn't have any. It was a good visual. I'd be happy to show it to you if you want to see it, but we felt like it would be best at large. Again, we didn't vote on that, and if you have an opinion on that and want to weigh in on that, great. But
I think you're going to get lots of opinions on that before this is all over.
Yeah.
Maybe one of them, but I think a lot of people are going to want to discuss that.
Absolutely. Wait a minute. Wait, Peter. Jeremy was next, and then you, Peter. Thank you.
Okay. Just on the compensation conversation, the Collins Group did say that most small towns throughout Massachusetts are 10 to 12,000 a year. Most of the cities, the elected representatives are more like $75,000 a year. And in the discussion, it was decided, as I heard, that this will be picked up later on.
Thank you, Jeremy. Peter?
Two things. I think that 75,000, Jeremy, that's a real full-time job, correct?
Oh, yes.
Where we're talking about not a full-time job, but getting compensation for your time, I think.
Yes, and Peter, though, when Tom Dixon was explaining all the work that presently goes on the select board, to my ear, it seemed as if minimum wage requirements didn't even match. They would certainly exceed whatever $10,000 or $12,000 a year would be.
And my second question, well, two. One is that I think the chairman of the finance committee should be compensated in the same way, and it should be retro. But I think going back to the at large or from specific geographic areas, if we go to specific geographic areas, we're going to have fights like short-term rental every single meeting, because all they're going to be doing is representing their specific area and constituency, which might be a special problem for them that doesn't affect anybody else. So, I think it would be a disaster if we didn't go at large. Just my opinion.
Okay. Any other?
Madam Chair, I agree with Peter.
Yes. Thank you, Joe. I think that if I just look at what during warrant season, as I call it, town meeting season, I look at the amount of time that I put in just as the finance committee chair, which is nowhere near as labor intensive as the select board is. I think the town council members will end up with close to full-time jobs to do all the things that they need to do at the depth they need to do them. So anyway, moving along. All right, let's see. Joanna's not here for CRC, so that's the end of committee reports. Any other business? Seeing no hands raised, may I have a motion to adjourn? I know this is all your favorite motion, so.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call. So before roll call, John, thank you for being here as always. Very much appreciated. It was easy
You're
lifting
welcome.
today. So good. Maria, welcome back. Hope you had a good vacation, nice and rested. So Dave, of course, thank you for being here and being helpful. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. Rob, off. Aye.
Want me to
You
make the
just have to
motion
say
to
aye.
adjourn?
No, we already have it. You just have to say aye, Rob.
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Denise, aye. And thank you very much, everyone. And we'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you.
You too.
So.